Ran the commercial the next week. Ran the commercial the next week.
Thank you, Senator. Congresswoman Rosen, you have 30 seconds for the rebuttal.
You know, Senator Heller, just because he says something doesn't mean it's true.
Tonight on Politics Now, a feisty Senate debate with both candidates sparring over health care, immigration, and guns, plus what our 8 News Now focus group thought of it.
That's what we need. We need a wacky Jackie in Congress. Another one.
President Donald Trump holds a rally for Republicans Dean Heller and Adam Laxalt up in Elko. How he describes his newfound friendship with Heller.
The only country in the world is based on an idea, the American idea, basic fundamental decency, and it's being shredded right now.
And former Vice President Joe Biden goes on the attack during an early morning Get Out the Vote rally at the Culinary Union.
From 8 News Now, this is Politics Now with Steve Sebelius and Patrick Walker.
Well, there's a lot of news to get to this week, not least of which is the fact that early voting is officially underway here in Nevada. Thanks for joining us. I'm Steve Sebelius.
And I'm Patrick Walker. So why are all those big names here this week? Because, as Steve mentioned, early voting started this morning. It runs until the last Friday before the election day, which is November 2nd. There are more than 90 polling places that will be open at various times here in Clark County. You can cast your ballot at any of them. For the last decade, more Nevadans have early voted than have actually gone out to the polls on Election Day. And on Election Day, you can go to any polling place this year as well, which makes it much more convenient to go out and vote.
Both parties are bringing out their big guns for the start of early voting. Former President Barack Obama will be here on Monday, and this morning, former Vice President Joe Biden held a Get Out the Vote rally with the Culinary Union. 8 News Now reporter Hector Mejia was there.
The main message at the rally this morning, turning Nevada blue and encouraging more young millennials to go out and vote. Here's a look at the last group remaining at the end of the rally. High spirits and enthusiasm this morning as former Vice President Joe Biden campaigned for Nevada's Democratic candidates at the Culinary Workers Union Local 226 in downtown Las Vegas.
What the union movement built, and everybody should remember this, built the middle class.
Candidates spoke to an estimated crowd of several hundred people as the November midterm election reaches Nevada. They talked about health care, immigration, and electing Congresswoman Jackie Rosen to the U.S. Senate. Today is the first day of early voting in Nevada.
Well, I intend to leave here and go vote, and it is one of the most important elections of our lifetime because as the country gets more polarized, it's absolutely essential that both sides have some stability.
The trade deals, the immigration, there's a number of issues that have made a number of Nevadans, as myself, really upset. I think that they're just jumping into certain issues without really thinking about it.
There are more than a dozen locations open today in Clark County for early voting. At the end of the rally, they encouraged people to go out to the Clark County Government Center nearby and cast an early vote. Reporting in downtown Las Vegas, Hector Mejia, 8 News Now.
Well, we mentioned former President Barack Obama will be here Monday. Current President Donald Trump was in Elko this afternoon encouraging voters to cast their ballots for Republicans, Senator Dean Heller and Attorney General, now Governor candidate Adam Laxalt.
But I got to know Dean very well, and I'll tell you, once we understood each other, and he's a tough guy and he's a smart guy and he loves this state a lot. Once we really got to know each other and understand, there's no better partner that I had in Washington, Dean Heller.
Trump went on to say Heller was instrumental in getting Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch, both he and Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court, as well as passing tax cuts. He also continued calling his opponent, Democratic Congresswoman Jackie Rosen, Wacky Jackie. Adam Laxalt also was called up on stage briefly and continued his campaign theme.
We're going to keep Nevada, the Nevada we all love, this independent western state. Are we going to turn into California?
Well, Laxalt's opponent is Democrat and Clark County Commission Chairman Steve Sisolak. This was the final day of Trump's Western campaign tour.
Well, both President Trump and Senator Heller mentioned last night's Senate debate, which took place right here on Channel 8. I moderated that debate along with 8 News Now anchor Denise Valdez and Univision political anchor in Washington, Tatiki Felix.
First question of the debate, really a central one that we have seen in the race so far, health care and protecting pre-existing conditions.
I wrote the bill, the repeal and the replacement bill for Republicans that specifically added pre-existing conditions to it because that's how I feel about it. I have 2 children, 2 grandchildren with pre-existing conditions. For you to think for a minute is shameful.
We need to be sure, number one, that we protect those pre-existing conditions that Senator Heller and his colleagues want to slash.
All right, Steve, did either of them really stand out to you on health care? This was the issue coming right out of the bat in the debate.
Yeah, they mostly both stuck to their positions. I mean, Rosen has hammered Heller repeatedly for going back on his promise to not vote for any bill that left more people without insurance. Now, Heller insisted that his version of the repeal would have protected people with pre-existing conditions, although it likely would have left more people without insurance.
So another big topic in this election has been guns, gun background checks, and gun laws. Senator Heller said he was against background checks for gun sales between private parties. Congresswoman Jackie Rosen said she supported universal background checks.
I do support the Second Amendment,
I do too.
and I will not do anything that will take guns away from law-abiding citizens. What I do want to do is make sure that those who are incapacitated or have mental problems, I want to limit their access to that.
We have to be sure that all commercial gun sales have valid research and have licensure. Going forward from there, we need to be sure that we ban bump stocks, like the kinds that were used on the 1 October shooting.
Really, both sides doubling down, no big surprises, although this was one topic that we know that they're very, very far apart on. So what stuck out to you during their answers on that question?
You know, both of the candidates said they were supporters of the Second Amendment, but the fact is thousands of gun background checks are conducted every day in this country in gun stores. This proposal would simply extend those background checks to all gun sales with exceptions for, transfers from within an immediate family, father to son and things like that. Now, both candidates agreed, and we heard Senator Heller say, we should keep guns out of the hands of people who should not have guns. But if gun sales take place without background checks, how are we to know if those people are not allowed to have a gun?
Well, another subject we heard about, earmarks, or what some people call pork barrel spending. Senator Heller mistakenly said to you, Steve, when he was answering the question that he was always against them, but he quickly reversed his course.
I'd like to ask you, you said you've never supported earmarks since you've been in Washington, D.C.
I'm sorry, and I was mistaken on that. When I was first in Congress, yes, we did have earmarks, I think, for the first couple of sessions. After that, we were banned, and I've supported the ban since. I apologize for making that error. Steve, you had a graphic ready to go on that, actually, with the numbers on there. Jackie Rosen on the attack a lot more, perhaps, than you were expecting last night. Was that how you took it?
Yeah, definitely. Almost from the very start of the debate, she interrupted several of his answers. She talked over him. I think she realizes because of polling and name recognition, she's the underdog. So she really wanted to use this debate to kind of make her mark. And this is the one and only time that they were going to face off on television. And so she wanted to make the most of it, I think.
Well, Steve was over here moderating the big studio. I was in Studio B with an undecided panel of voters. They hope to hear about issues like health care, immigration, and the Second Amendment. And while some of their reactions, frankly, caught me a little bit off guard by jumping party lines, the panel's ultimate decision, it did not.
I don't want to go backwards. I want to go forward.
With the turn of a dial, independent voters made their opinions known hours before early voting starts in Nevada. The race between Representative Jackie Rosen and Senator Dean Heller for his Senate seat is a tight one. And our panel of 15 likely voters saw it that way too after the hour-long debate wrapped up. Who won the debate tonight? And it was close, 8-7 in favor of Senator Heller. In such a tight race, independent voters are key. They made up the largest chunk of our panel, 7 out of the 15. Their responses in yellow tended to lean in Senator Heller's favor. 5 of the 7 independent voters said they'd go for Heller.
It just seemed like he knew a little bit more about the issue, whereas a lot of the things that the Congresswoman was saying, it was kind of feel-good words.
Rosen's support remained strong among Democrats, including after a question over the Congresswoman missing a vote on a veterans bill to tour a migrant child detention facility in Texas.
She was there and saw it and witnessed what everyone was going through, where Senator Heller was more trying to say what she was doing was wrong.
Attacks from both sides, enough to turn off the majority of the panel.
It's one of those things where they both failed.
That, enough for one voter to consider not voting for either candidate, leaving our panel split down the middle.
I would not want to vote for either if there's any other options. I didn't like the options out there, to be honest.
All right, so we went from 8-7 to, after some discussion, to a 7-7 split. So much like the panel's outcome, the polls have been very tight in this race. The Real Clear Politics average of polls over the last month shows Heller up by 1.7% in this race, which is within this margin of error. That does not include any polls that would have been conducted in the last week. So, Steve, do you think either candidate really leapt out front and set themselves apart last night?
Well, you know, judging from the reactions I saw on Twitter, I think the debate performances mostly reinforced the views of the base. If you were inclined to be supportive or loyal to one of those candidates, it just kind of look for reasons to kind of justify your decision. But people who didn't know either candidate or who didn't know much about their positions, there was a lot of material for them to make up their mind in last night's debate.